Namaskar and a very warm welcome to Question Answer with Swami Kriyananda. Friends, we are here to discuss about spiritualism, spirituality, your life, your soul, and lot about meditation and lots of things which keep on bothering you every other day. We are going to answer all your queries and your queries will be answered by Swami Kriyananda. Welcome Swamiji.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar.
And I would request you to start the program with your prayer.
Om Bhurбhuvah Swaha Om Tatsaviturvaraniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodhayatom. I bow to God in you and in all beings.
You may please ask your question. Hello.
Swamiji, Namaskar. Swamiji, I am Pragya from Kanpur. Swamiji, I ask you a question that what is the best way to pray?
My Guru said the best prayer is to say, reveal thyself that I may give thee to all. But to pray with the heart is the important thing. This is what I love in India. Because they talk to God as a friend. They talk to Him as somebody they can... For instance, there's a beautiful Bengali song in which Krishna is called cruel and fickle. And you wouldn't dream of hearing that in other religions where they talk pompously and praise Him as if He was a royal majesty sitting on a throne and you hardly dared approach Him except with your eyes on the floor. To have a confident relationship with God is what He wants from us. We should talk to Him as a child to his mother, as a friend to his friend, as a lover to his beloved. Talk to Him as you feel in your heart, because He knows your heart anyway. And if you have made a mistake, then say, frankly, God, I made the mistake, but after all, you created this delusion, and you have to free me from this delusion. It's not just my fault, it's yours too. And be honest with Him.
That's really wonderful. It has been really very inspiring. We have a caller again waiting for the question. You may please put across your question. Hello.
I am Mohan from Vrindavan. Is it God's will that countries go to war? If so, why would God want that to happen?
Well, what does God will? There are two wills. One is that the show go on. You know, there's this story, I told it some time ago, about how Brahman first created this universe perfect, and everybody being perfect sat down in meditation, went into samadhi and merged back into Him. They tried it again and it didn't work. Always they kept going back to Him. He said, well, if this show is going to go on, I have to create delusion. This is just a way of putting it, that without delusion, this show would not go on. And so what does God want? He really doesn't want anything, but His desireless desire, you might say, is that we come to Him. But it's like a good story in which you need a lot of tension, a lot of difficulties, a lot of opposition, a lot of problems and trials, and finally at the end, everything works out and you say, oh, what a good show. And so wars are a part of this. It isn't that God wants wars, but we live in a universe in which there is this veil of Maya upon us. It's begun with the thought of I. I am different from other people. And this thought of I leads to problems, because as soon as I think I'm different, I begin to think, well, I want to be better than other people. And I don't like it when other people impose on me. And so we begin to have likes and dislikes. And where there are likes and dislikes, there will be war. And it's useless to have parades talking about banning the bomb. First of all, if people didn't have bombs, they would use pitchforks, but they would fight anyway. It seems to be a part of human nature. And the thing is that if you want to fight, you're certainly going to try to find the most effective ways of beating your enemy possible. So if you ban the bomb, somebody's going to make one in his basement. You can't help it. You can't blame God for that. God certainly does not want man to suffer, but He has created a system of rewards and punishment, you might say. It's just like Pavlovian psychology. You ring a bell when you give the dog food, and finally when you ring the bell, he salivates anyway, expecting the food. So with this law, if you go against the law, you have to suffer. It's not that God wants suffering, but he wants you not to keep going on in this delusion. And if there weren't for suffering, I don't think anybody would turn to God. They would accept their not just second best, about 1,000th best, a world in which there is so huge a compromise. I mean, when you think that the soul wants perfect, absolute, infinite, divine love, and he's stuck with one human being, that's a compromise. Nothing wrong with it as long as you can understand that there may be something better. But there has to be a plus and a minus in this universe. If there were waves, there have to be troughs. And so there has to be, when you go against the law, there has to be something to tell you you've gone against the law. So you have a flame, you put your hand in it, you can't leave it there. And this protects your body. If it didn't hurt you, you would leave your hand in the flame and it would burn and destroy your hand. And so the punishments in this world, the punishments of karma, the punishments that come from the wars and the suffering that result from wars, these are all necessary lessons for man to realize that hatred is not the answer, violence is not the answer, selfishness is not the answer, and bit by bit people slowly wake up from their dream of delusion and realize that there is a greater happiness when I am kind to people than when I am unkind. And so gradually they go from the lower levels of consciousness to higher ones. But even sattvic qualities are still born of ego. And so sattvic happiness says, I am happy. And if you say, I am happy, you may be complacent and satisfied. If you are, you'll begin to fall back into tamas, laziness, not wanting to try. And so the waves go up and down and up and down. The final lesson of life is to understand that you were made by God to know God. You were not made by God to play in this mud puddle. When your mother sees when you were a child and you were maybe playing in a mud puddle, she didn't try to clean up the mud puddle. She took you out of the mud puddle. And so God doesn't want to clean up this mess. He wants to take you out of this mess. The mess will go on. It will be created by human ignorance, yes, but the law is there permitting man to create this mess. And it's only after a lot of suffering that one by one we come to him. It's not a mass thing. It's not that society can produce perfection. One by one, here and there and elsewhere, people come to God. But it always depends upon your effort. You have to have reached the point where you realize you don't want this mess anymore. You want to find a happiness that doesn't change. You want to find a love that isn't just limited in one person or a small family. The love that is infinite. All these things come by trial and error, and they don't come without suffering. And so suffering, although not pleasant by any means, obviously, nonetheless, if you look back over your life, you will see that if you have tried to live a good life and have tried to learn, every real lesson you have learned has been due to some suffering, hasn't it? I can certainly say that for myself.
That's really true, Swamiji. We always talk about a right guru, a right teacher and a preacher, but I never thought a teacher or preacher was required to give a lesson for life also, but you have given me a good lesson, and I believe my audience are so happy with all this.
I remember I went through a period of deep suffering, and I got a message from Ananda, who was a great saint in India, and she wrote, "Take this as your guru's kripa." Your Guru's grace. I thought, I can't understand that, but I did in time. And I saw that that was the best thing that could possibly have happened for me. I have seen again and again that the suffering we go through, if we take it in the right spirit and don't just get angry with God, it is a great blessing in the end. We learn this way.
That's really true, Swami. Thank you so much for your wonderful answer. We have a caller waiting for his turn. You may please put across your question. Hello.
I am Puran from Nainital. Swamiji, Can I ask a question?
Try.
I have such a quick temper. It gets me into lots of trouble. How can I learn to control my anger?
Well, if there's any question that really makes me angry, it's that one. No. You know, the thing is, there is a saying which you must have in India also. We have it in America and in English-speaking countries that count 10 before you express your anger.
That's true.
It's a good thing not to react quickly. Don't react off the cuff, so to speak. And the thing is that the temptation to anger has one basis. Krishna puts it in the Bhagavad Gita perfectly. It's the result of anger, of desire, I should say. When you desire something and that desire is frustrated, then you become angry. And always, if you get angry, if you get unhappy or upset about anything, it's because you think things should be different from what they are. People ought to treat you differently from the way they do. You ought to have this and you didn't get it, so you get angry. First of all, we have to accept that this world is what it is. People are what they are. But the point is, finally, that when you get angry, it upsets your own mental equilibrium. In fact, however, and this is one of the problems with anger, it feels good, doesn't it? You blow up at somebody and you feel really good, but in the end, it doesn't help you. Some people think that the way to get out of anger or any desire is express it. But in fact, I remember there was some sort of psychological teaching in the West, a sort of primal scream. And if you scream your head off, you'll get rid of all this frustrated anger inside you. Well, that's ridiculous. You might feel better for 5 minutes, and then what? You've started a habit of getting angry, and it gets worse, not better. It's better not to express your anger. If you have to do it, don't make it worse by expressing your anger to somebody else who will then get angry with you, and then you get more angry, and it builds up. Go out and kick a tree if you have to. But the best thing is to take a deep breath and understand that anger does not really accomplish anything except your own upset. I find it a little difficult to answer this question. It's often asked of me. My problem is that I don't get angry. And so I have a difficult time relating to that. But I do see that when people get angry, it's because they are like spoiled children. They want the world to be different from what it is. We have to learn to accept that the world is this way. And if people don't like you, well, you have to accept that maybe they don't all like you. Do you always like yourself? I'm not so sure. We must be, we find when we are calm, when we can give calmness, that we are happier. And that's the final, there are two tests for what is morally right. One is, are you happier? The problem with that is that there are tamasic kinds of happiness. There's a kind of happiness you feel when you scratch a mosquito bite, which is not really pleasure. It hurts a little, but it somehow feels good too. I don't mean that kind of happiness, but because the word happiness can be misunderstood, as somebody may hurt another people and say, I feel so good, I really got even with him. Well, that's not what I mean. So another thing I would say is, as a basis for morality, a guideline, is does it make you feel freer inside? Even that is tricky, yes, because you get rid of a desire and you pinch your skin and you let go and it feels good. So you feel free from the pinch. That's not what I mean either. But there is a certain kind of freedom that comes when the mind expands, when the sympathies expand, when you feel more confident. That kind of freedom, when you do right, you feel that kind of freedom. And you will see that people who are always happy and never angry, it's because they feel free inside and they'd rather feel free. Why allow the demon of anger to get a hold of you? You suffer as a result. So for your own sake, learn to be kind toward people and learn to accept that everybody really wants only one thing, everybody in this world, in this universe, wants Satchidananda. They think they want pleasure, but pleasure always has its opposite. Like you drink, you get a hangover. You get angry and you feel sort of badly afterwards in some way. I say you feel good, but something doesn't feel right. You satisfy a desire and plunge yourself into this calm or this desire or whatever it might be, and in the end you don't feel happy. And so bit by bit you understand and you refine your sense of what happiness really is. Finally, the reason, the impulse toward Satchidananda is that in our souls we all want it. This is what Adi Shankara said. We all are seeking that, and we seek it in wrong ways. But that is the one thing that leads us forward through life. We make so many mistakes that we have to go through many lives. But the time comes when we sort of feel we've had enough. And when you come to that, then you begin to seek God. And you understand that God is not some sort of being up there in the heavens. He's your own self and He's infinite. When you have that, you just don't feel like getting angry.
That's really wonderful, Swami. It's really wonderful. I think anger shouldn't be expressed. Love should be expressed because it needs more and more of expressions.
True, but how do you say that to somebody when he's angry?
We
That's
should
not
try.
so easy.
Yeah, that's really
But
true.
you know, one time my guru, this was during the Depression years, and he was talking about how it was unfair that rich people were taking advantage of poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And he named a few names of people who were being ruthless in exploitation of the poor. And people said to him afterwards, better go home with other people, don't be alone. He said, I'm not afraid, God is with me. And he went to, I think it was Penn Station, and in a dark corner, suddenly somebody put a gun in his back. And he said, why did you talk like that about those people? And my guru turned around, he was completely unafraid. He said, all people are His children, and God is not pleased when His rich children take advantage of His poor children. Now, you don't normally talk like this to somebody who's been sent to shoot you.
That's really true. That's really true.
And then he looked at this man and he said, why do you live the way you do? He said, I demand that Satan come out of you. And the man began to tremble all over. And he dropped his gun.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't live that way anymore. What have you done to me?
That's really
Well,
nice.
This is the power of love. Now, when you have that love, yes, you can change people with love.
That's really true.
Yeah.
That's really true, Swamiji. We have a caller waiting for his turn. You may please call up. Hello? Hello?
Namaste. I am K.M. Singh. I am a student of history and I see that nation and civilization rise and fall over and over again. Don't we ever make any progress? Will we world ever be better than it is now?
Well, people learn. What happens is when you go to school, you learn your lessons, and if you learn them well, you graduate. But the children at that level remain that level. And when they get good enough and they graduate, then you don't see them anymore. And so this world keeps having different people coming into it. I don't say they learn their lessons very quickly, but when they do learn their lessons, they don't have to come back here anymore. So that's one answer. There's a much larger answer to that, and that is that the history of the human race and of this planet is cyclic. And this is a part of the Indian teachings, yogas. And one Mahayoga, according to my Param Guru Swami Sri Yukteswar, he said that really a Mahayoga is 24,000 years. If you look at history, you will see that indeed there was a sort of a decline in understanding down to 500 AD when it was the depth of Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga began to ascend and people began to see things in new ways and different ways. And now we're in Dwapara Yuga and people are suddenly beginning to understand that matter is not the final reality. They no longer think of man and the earth as the center of everything. I asked my guru once, well, when Satya Yuga comes and everything is a golden age, do the same people as are being born on this planet now come back then? And he said, no, there are many planets to go to. So the thing is that the world remains as it is. It's a school. And people come to this school, and when the school gets better, they have to go to other places where the right schooling for them exists. So if they are of Kali Yuga temperament, they won't come back in Satya Yuga. They'll go to a planet where everybody is living more in Kali Yuga. You are drawn to the kind of planet you are normally fit for. So will this world become better? At the present time, it is getting better. It will go through its period of suffering, but we are on the mend, you might say. But it won't last. It'll go to a peak and then come down, up and down. This world will never give us the answers we want. Those answers exist in the self. Those answers exist in God. And the answer to it all is to know who we are, why we live here, why He sent us out. We need to understand the source of love, the source of bliss. All the things we really want, we think we will find where it will not be found. We will find it in divine wakefulness. Okay?
That's really true, Swamiji. It has been really very inspiring. We have a caller waiting for you. You may please ask your question.
Namaskar. I am Ketan from Pune. Why is India becoming so Western, and why are so many Westerners not interested in India?
We are coming into a different yuga where unity is needed. During Kali Yuga, which ended in 1699 AD, or you can say roughly 1700, it's easier to think that way, people had to specialize. And so it was a part of the divine plan that the East, and especially India, would specialize in the spiritual side. And in the West, they would specialize the material side. And in fact, Pope Leo X, according to something I have read, said that this had been revealed to him by God, that in the West they had to develop in materialistic ways. And in India, they developed so much one-sidedly in the spiritual that they began to think that everything in the world is nothing and you shouldn't think about material things at all. And I remember some sadhu, he was an old man, 132 years old. But I said to him, he said, you shouldn't enjoy anything. And I said, not even a beautiful sunset? No, nothing. Well, frankly, I think that's a very dry attitude. You should enjoy everything with the joy of God. I don't think it's very flattering to God. He's created this beautiful world and you hate it. We should love it, but we should love it with the joy in our hearts, so that when you feel joy, and let us say in a sunset, you don't think it's out there. You think it's your ability to respond with joy to that beauty, and you concentrate on the source of your joy, which is inside. So rather than negate everything, we need to understand the balance between the outer and the inner world. At this time, East and West are destined to come together. So my Guru said that many Western souls are being born in India, and you walk through Connaught Circus in Delhi, and you could swear you're looking at Wall Street stockbrokers with brown skin. And you go to America and you see so many people, they look like Indians with white skin. Not that it's really white, it's pink, but we don't like to think that way.
Wind up.
And so the truth is that now is the time where we need to bring about a balance. The West needs to learn the spirituality which is highest in India. And the India needs to learn how to be materialistically successful, but in a dharmic way. Material efficiency. I wrote a course on this. It's called Material Success Through Yoga Principles. And it shows how if you live dharmically, you will be successful in business, and if you don't, you will sooner or later fail. And I have done this with my own life. I've done many things successfully in this world, just because I refused to not be dharmic, even when it looked as if I couldn't possibly succeed. Unless I cut a corner and told a lie or whatever, I would not do it. and I found that I always came out on top. It is the truth, but it is a truth that we need to blend together. And I think someday we will see that this is one world.
That's really wonderful, sir. That's really wonderful. We would certainly like to succeed in every walk of our life, but we need your blessings every time. Thank you so much, Swamiji.
Thank you.